Hey there, Aubrey. How's it going today?
I'm great. How are you, Lindsay?
I'm feeling good, but I do have a question to start off the episode for
Nice.
you.
Okay,
Okay.
let's hear it.
So, when was the last time that you pushed a decision off until later, some other time?
Ooh, I'm pretty bad at doing that. The most recent thing I can think of, we just got my daughter her learner's permit to practice
Mhm.
so that she can get a driver's license. And
Okay.
it reminded me when my eldest daughter, when she was old enough to get her learner's permit, she was kind of nervous, didn't feel ready to drive. And so we pushed it off. We let
Mhm.
her sort of delay. But then by the time she actually was old enough to drive, and if she
Mhm.
was excited and ready, she had to
Mhm.
wait because you have to have had your learner's permit for 6 months to practice,
Oh,
and so we
no.
really regretted pushing that
Yeah.
off, delaying, so we're like, "Oh, now she's ready," and we messed up by
Yeah.
pushing
So
it
you
off.
learn, and now the second time around, you're wiser and ready to go.
Exactly, so now our second daughter, the day she turned 15 and a half, I was at the MVD with her, we were, like, ready to get her permit, we were not even gonna
Yes.
wait 1 day. I hate the MVD though, don't you, Lindsay? It's the
Oh,
worst.
yeah, the d I guess I call it the DMV, but yes,
DMV.
this is the place where you get your license renewed, you get your license for the first time, register your car, whatever it is you have to do. Notoriously
Yes.
awful and slow government
Yes.
services, yeah,
And the
not good.
acronym might be confusing for if listeners out there, if you've been to the US or if you've moved to the US, you might be like, "Why is it sometimes DMV and sometimes MVD?" Some states
Yeah,
call it the Department of Motor Vehicles,
right.
DMV, and some call it Motor Vehicle Department, MVD.
Hmm,
Weird. I
okay.
don't know why. Can we just pick one and stick with it
I know, I don't know
just
why
for
either,
ease?
that's really weird, but guys,
Strange.
now you know if you're living in the US, at some point you will have to go to the MVD or the DMV,
And the lines are
and
long
be
and
ready.
people there are grumpy.
Basically, most of the time when I have to go to the DMV, I plan on being there for a number of hours.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I will bring my work with me because it could be long. So,
Absolutely. At least we have phones now 'cause,
yeah,
ugh, you're
yeah,
standing in line forever, it's the
it's
worst.
not good.
So,
So
this is
today
fun. I'm glad you asked me that question. We were
yes.
trying to find a question about putting something off until
Mhm,
later because we're teaching a few chunks today that we use when we talk about this, and this is actually a really fun way to connect with people, to
mhm.
ask if they're the type of person to maybe procrastinate, push something
It
off
is
until
really fun.
later. I
Yeah,
always like
I
knowing
agree.
that.
Yeah, and this is part 2 of a 3-part series about will versus going to. Aubrey, where was part 1 and what did we learn in part
Yes,
1?
we recorded part 1 for the Business English podcast. It was episode 232, Will or Going to, Your Future Grammar Questions Answered. This was an amazing question from a student about when to use will and when to use going to. We get that student
Yes.
question a ton. So if you missed
Yes.
that episode, go and check it out and be sure you're following the Business English podcast so you don't miss any of the amazing episodes we record over there.
Oh, for sure. And that in that episode, we really got into the nuts and bolts of will versus
Yes.
going to. You got the grammar guys. So go over and follow the Business English podcast to get that episode. And now we're here for part 2. There will be a part 3 in this series, Aubrey. Where will that one be?
Yes, it's going to be on IELTS Energy with some idioms we use that have the word will. So make sure you're following IELTS Energy too to get part 3.
I love it. And we had a poll that we want to update our listeners on. This was an interesting one about saying often or often, right?
Yes, if you missed that episode, I loved it. It was 2146. Lindsay
Mhm.
says often. I
Yes.
say often with a silent T. Go check it out if you missed that episode. There really is no wrong answer, both
Yeah.
in the United States and in England. You're going to hear both, but we wanted to know what you guys say. And the
Yeah.
results were interesting. You want to share them with us, Lindsay?
Very interesting. So with the T, which is the way I say it, we got 25%, only 25%, right? 1 in 4.
Right, and without the T, the way I say it was 75%. Very
Mm,
interesting, and it's not too late, you guys can still go and fill out that
yes.
poll on Spotify. I kinda wanna check back later and see when we get even more results, but I've been listening, and I noticed my sister, we grew up in the same state, she
Yeah.
pronounces the T like you, she says often, and so
Interesting.
I'm really wondering because I didn't really think about it when I was younger. I may
Right.
have pronounced often, but where I live now, my
Hmm.
husband's family doesn't, and so I think I've sort of picked that up.
Oh, fascinating. This
Oh,
is great.
interesting.
I love this. It's good to listen to family and friends, but obviously, as we said, nothing wrong with either one.
Absolutely.
But it is interesting to see the breakdown for our listeners. Only 1 in 4, right, will say
Mhm.
the T, pronounce the T. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
it is interesting. So, yeah, I love those Spotify polls. Let your voice be heard. We want to know. I love it.
Yes, so good. All right, Aubrey, let's get into the content for today for our listeners. Today we're going for these chunks, right?
Yes, there are chunks where you can't choose will or going to.
Right.
Grammar is sort of thrown out the window. Everything
Yes.
you learned in that business English podcast, usually, yes, you need to know will or going to. There are ways to know, pro tips we shared, but sometimes there's a chunk and you have to use will.
Yeah, it's kind of fun how, in the last episode in this series, we taught you all the grammar. We got really deep into it. And now today, as you said, Aubrey, we're just throwing all those rules out the window.
We
I
do this
love
a
it.
lot in English, right? Where grammar rules sort of go out the window or vocabulary for
Yeah.
idioms, for chunks that have to be word for word that might
Mhm.
not make sense as far as grammar and what the words actually mean.
Oh, I'm excited. I wonder if our listeners have heard these chunks. If not, you're going to hear them a lot. Right. So let's get into the first one, Aubrey. What is it?
Yes, this first one is we'll see. And this is very idiomatic. You can't say I'll see, he'll see, and you cannot say we are going to see, right? It's a chunk. You have to use it just like this.
And I feel like moms and dads have a trademark on "we'll see" because I
Absolutely.
remember getting this a lot as a kid. I think maybe I said this before when we went over this one, but or mentioned it somewhere on the show. Uh, asking your parents, "Can we do this? Can we do that?" "Oh, we'll see," right? Because you don't want to commit and you don't want to say no because you don't want to lose their hope and their positive
Exactly.
energy around something.
That came
Uh,
up in when we were talking about will versus going
yes,
to. That's what gave us
yes,
the idea for
that's
the
what it
second
was.
part of the series, and you're right,
Yeah.
I say "we'll see" all the time to my kids, but it comes up
Mm-hmm.
in other conversations as well. We're going to do a mini role play to
Yeah.
show how it might come up in a conversation. This just means, like, the speaker does not intend to make a decision right now or immediately, they're going to decide later, but it's
Okay.
a chunk. We have to say it just like this. "We'll see." We don't actually mean we really mean I. Like, I'll decide later, but the
Yeah.
way we say this is, "We'll see."
Yeah, that's the interesting part, right? The pronoun is a little bit different. So let's do a role play here and show our listeners outside of the context of being a parent, right? This is
Exactly.
another way. So, are you meeting up with friends this weekend?
We'll see. I might have to play it by ear since I haven't been sleeping well.
Yeah, I like it. It's giving the reality of you're just not sure yet, right?
Exactly. This I
Mhm.
would definitely use it this way. I say this a lot, not just to my kids, but if I just
Mhm.
wanna say like, "Ooh, I'm not sure yet," this is such a native natural chunk to do that.
I love it. Okay, so we'll see, guys. Write that one down so you have it in your list. What would be the second one, Aubrey?
Okay, the second one is very idiomatic as well. "Time will tell," and it
Yeah.
just means like, "Ooh, I can't know that. We won't know that until later."
All right, here we go.
So a little mini role play here, I'll start us
Yes.
out. "Do you think he'll like that job?"
I'm not sure. Time will tell.
Nice. I use
Yeah.
this a lot. It's very friendly, but it's also I don't know, it's interesting how it's almost up leveled. Like it feels a little more formal to me than just "we'll see."
Yes. I would say so. Time will tell. Feels a little sing-songy, kind of thinking
Mhm.
about the future in a uncertain way, a little less common than we'll see. We'll see is said everywhere all the time, right?
Exactly. I agree. You may hear this at work or someone older than you may say it. I can imagine my parents, my grandparents saying "time will tell." I think I
Right.
still would say it every now and then in certain contexts. Maybe, to keep something light, "Well, time will tell."
Right, but it's a little bit less of a daily use thing. It's about the
Absolutely.
future, envisioning what's going to happen, right?
I
Okay.
agree. Whereas "we'll see," I say it probably multiple times a day.
Absolutely. Okay, Aubrey, we're diving into number three, our third chunk, where the rules don't matter. So we're not talking about the rules today. What is our third chunk?
Yes, now this one's really interesting. It's someone, like they or I, they'll
Hmm.
be sorry. Like they will be
Mm,
sorry. We always make it a contraction. Maybe I'll be sorry, you'll be sorry, he'll be sorry. It just means someone will regret a decision in the future. Especially we use this when they're not taking our advice. We might say
hmm.
something, right? If they say,
Right.
I'm not going to take your advice. Well,
Mm,
you'll be
you'll be
sorry.
sorry, right? A little tone of voice going on there. And for this one, obviously, we can change the pronoun. Before with we'll see, the pronoun really doesn't change, right? As you said, Aubrey, we never say
Right.
I'll see, they'll see. But with this
Exactly.
one, it's really who you're talking to. So that's important to know the difference between one and three here. All right.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And we wanna talk about you wanna be careful, like, you can always say, "I'll be sorry, right? I might say, "I
Right.
think if I don't take this opportunity, I'll be sorry." That just means I might
Mm.
regret it. This,
Mhm.
there's no negative, there's no judgment or criticism, but
Yeah.
that does exist if you say this about someone else or potentially can, right?
Interesting. Okay, let's see this in a role play here. Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, so she decided not to take the scholarship.
Ugh, she'll be sorry.
Yeah. I
So
wonder
there's
if there's
definitely some, like, judgment, criticism, and, if we're saying this about when someone doesn't take our advice, I feel like it can sound a little petty, like our
Mhm.
example earlier, "Oh, you're not gonna take my advice? You'll be sorry."
Right, because honestly, you have to let people figure things out on their own, you know?
Absolutely.
I think, when I was a teenager, things like belly button rings were really hot and, like, nose rings were really hot, and I think that's something where maybe people do it when they're a certain age, and then maybe later they're like, "Oh, I got an infection or something," and they're sorry, but they have to figure that or maybe they're glad they made that decision, but they have to figure it
Right.
out on
You
their
might
own,
think
you
that,
know?
but don't say it out loud, right?
Yeah.
"Ooh, they're gonna be
Right,
scared, they'll be
it sounds
sorry."
kinda judgy, and you really don't know how someone will ever feel about their own decisions later on,
Right,
right?
exactly, but I do
Yeah.
feel like this is a great phrase. I use it a lot for humor to remove awkwardness from a situation. So we have a little
Mhm.
role play to show how that might work. You and I are playing tennis in this role play. I'll start us out. Ready?
Okay, yes.
Do you want me or Jack to be your teammate?
Oh, I'm fine with either. Jack, wanna be on my team?
Okay, I see how it is. You'll be sorry. This is how I would use
Mm.
it, right? To make
Mhm.
fun, to play like you haven't chosen me. I
Mhm.
almost feel like it would be awkward for me to say nothing about that and just be serious, then maybe you'll think I'm offended. But if I make a
Right.
joke like this, it keeps
Right.
it really lighthearted, there's no awkwardness.
And especially if we're on the courts, we have our rackets in hand, we're
Yes.
already in that competitive mode. So it also makes sense in terms of the context that you said it there. Ooh, you'll be sorry. You just
Right? A little
wait.
bit of trash talk.
Yeah. 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 A little trash talk.
I love it. These all 3 of these chunks are so useful, but I think it's really important just to point out for you guys to notice there are chunks in English where you don't have the option of using either will or going to. You have to
Mhm.
use it word for word.
Yes, I love that. So we are learning the grammar rules. We're learning to understand and feel into what makes sense going to or will. But today we're just learning the chunks. So don't even think about the grammar in this case, right, guys? Integrate these into your daily speech. I love it. Any other takeaways for our listeners today?
I
Anything?
think just something you mentioned recently, I mean, we mention this often, but
Mm-hmm.
just how important it is to not translate from your first language. It's so tempting
Ugh,
to do that.
yes.
And when it comes to chunks, idioms like this, that's we can really get in trouble, right? They're not going to
Yes.
translate directly. It doesn't mean the same thing word for word. We have to
Mm-hmm.
learn it as a chunk.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Learn the chunks, go for it fully, guys, and always go for connection. I love it. All right, Aubrey, thanks for being on the mic together today.
Awesome. See you next time.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.